Some houses are just four walls and a roof. But some houses are a feeling. The kind that stays with you long after you leave. Marcus grew up in the second kind. It was a small house in a small Ohio town, the kind of town where the diner never changes its menu and everyone waves at you from their porch, even if they can't quite remember your name. His father had passed 2 years before. He left behind a battered pickup truck, a jar of peppermints on the counter, and a Bible with handwritten notes in the margins, notes that looked like love letters to God. Every night, Marcus's mother would pull that Bible to the table, open it to the same page, and read out loud. Not because it was a rule. But because she meant it. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Marcus knew those words by heart. He'd heard them 1,000 times. He could say them in his sleep. But knowing something, and actually trusting it, those are two very different things. And Marcus was about to find out exactly how different. Marcus had a plan. He was 23, ambitious, and absolutely convinced that the life he wanted was somewhere else, somewhere louder, somewhere bigger, somewhere with glass buildings and city views and opportunities that didn't require knowing the right last name. His college friend Jordan had already made it there. Or at least, Jordan's Instagram made it look that way. Marcus packed one bag. His mother drove him to the bus station without a word. She hugged him at the door like she was trying to memorize the weight of him. He got on the bus. He didn't look back. He thought he was heading toward something. He didn't yet know he was walking away from it. Chicago was not impressed by Marcus. Chicago is not impressed by anyone. The job lead fell through. The apartment was half the size it looked online. His savings account made a sound like a deflating balloon. 3 months in, he was eating cereal for dinner and rehearsing how to tell his mother he was coming home. That's when Derek walked into his life. Derek had the kind of confidence that fills a room before the person does. He wore success like a cologne and had a gift for making you feel like you were the most important person he'd spoken to all week. He told Marcus he ran a consulting firm. He said Marcus had a gift for people. He said he was exactly the kind of talent they'd been looking for. Marcus's gut said, something about this is slightly off. Like a note played just barely out of tune, you can't name it, but you feel it. But his savings account was down to 3 digits. And Derek's offer sounded like a lifeline. He started the next Monday. The money came. And with the money came the things money buys, a nicer place, better clothes, the feeling of being someone going somewhere. His mother called every Sunday. He answered less and less. Not because he didn't love her. But because she always asked the same question. Are you at peace, baby? And he didn't have a good answer. The truth was, he hadn't opened his Bible in 4 months. He hadn't prayed in 6. There was a quiet noise inside him that he kept turning down, like a smoke alarm he'd learned to sleep through. He told himself, I'll get back on track when things settle down. But things don't settle down when you're walking away from the thing that steadied you. Then came the morning Derek slid a folder across the desk and asked Marcus to sign a financial report. A report that was not entirely true. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a movie moment. There was no thunder, no warning music. Just a man with a pen, staring at a page, doing the math in his head, what he'd lose if he said no, what he'd gain if he said yes. He thought about Proverbs 3. He thought about his father's Bible. He thought about his mother's voice. Then he thought about his apartment. His car payment. The version of himself he was trying to become. He signed. The pen felt heavier than it should have. He told himself it didn't. It came apart in 1 week. The way big things always do, not slowly, but all at once. On Monday, his mother called to say she'd been diagnosed. She needed help. She didn't ask. She just mentioned it the way she mentioned everything, quietly, without drama, trusting that God would provide. On Wednesday, a federal investigation into Derek's firm was announced publicly. On Friday, Derek called. In his smoothest, most reasonable tone, he explained that the company's legal team had identified Marcus as the primary signatory on the flagged reports. Derek himself, of course, had very little recollection of being involved. Marcus sat in his car in a parking garage for 2 hours. The engine off. The city noise muffled. Just the sound of his own breathing and the full weight of every compromise he had made, stacked on top of each other, all at once, too heavy to carry. That night, Marcus found his father's Bible at the bottom of a box he'd never unpacked. He sat down on the floor, back against the couch, in the dark, and held it against his chest. He didn't have the words for a proper prayer. He didn't feel worthy of one. So he just started talking. God. I know I walked away. I stopped trusting you and started trusting myself. I thought I could see the whole road. I thought I was smart enough to navigate without you. And I was wrong. I am so wrong. I'm sitting on the floor of an apartment I can't afford, and I have nothing. And I don't know what comes next. But I know I can't do this alone anymore. He waited in the silence. And then, not with thunder, not with a voice from the ceiling, but quietly, like light coming slowly under a door, something settled in his chest. A peace he hadn't felt in over a year. He drove home the next morning. He didn't call ahead. He didn't rehearse what to say. He just drove. His mother was on the porch when he pulled in. Standing there like she'd known he was coming. Maybe she had. She'd been praying for him every single day. He walked up the steps. He looked at her. And he said 3 words, "Mom, I'm sorry." She didn't ask for details. She didn't say "I told you so." She opened her arms. And in that moment, Marcus understood something he'd been too proud to understand before: home is not a place you outgrow. It's a grace you return to. The legal situation took 8 months to resolve. With full cooperation and a good attorney, Marcus avoided prosecution, but repaid every dollar he had received from those contracts. Every single one. He moved back home. He took a job at a local logistics company. Nothing impressive on LinkedIn. But honest. Fully, completely honest. Some nights he'd scroll through Jordan's Instagram and feel a flicker of something. Not quite envy. More like a memory of who he used to want to be. Then he'd close the app. Open his Bible. And the flicker would go out. He was learning something nobody had ever told him: peace isn't the absence of struggle. Peace is knowing whose hands you're in while you struggle. He started going to church again. Not out of obligation, but out of hunger. He'd spent 2 years in a world that was loud and empty, and he was done pretending that was enough. He started reading his father's Bible the way his father used to. Slowly, with a pen, writing in the margins. Notes to God. Notes to himself. Notes for whoever might read it someday. He was learning what trust actually means. It doesn't mean God puts your life on easy mode. It means you stop white-knuckling the wheel. You stop trying to see 20 miles ahead when God is only asking you to take the next step. The path was narrow. But it was solid. And every step he took on it felt more real than anything he'd built in Chicago. A year later, his pastor asked Marcus to speak at the youth group. Marcus almost said no. He didn't feel qualified. He'd made too many wrong turns to stand up and give anyone directions. His pastor told him something he'd never forgotten. Your scars aren't a disqualification, Marcus. They're your credentials. He stood up in front of 20 young people and told them everything. The city. Derek. The document. The floor of that apartment. All of it. He didn't preach. He just told the truth. And sometimes, the truth is the sermon. Afterward, a 19-year-old kid came up to him and said, I was about to make the same choice. I'm not going to now. That moment, that one quiet exchange in a small church fellowship hall, was worth more than everything Derek had ever put in his bank account. 2 years after he drove out of Chicago, Marcus sat at his mother's kitchen table. Same table. Same kitchen. Same Bible. But this time, he was the one reading. He read slowly. The way his father used to. Finger tracing the words. Like they were made of something precious. He looked up at his mother. She was smiling the way she smiled when she prayed, like she already knew how the story ended. He finally understood what those words meant. Not because someone explained them. But because he had lived the alternative. And come back. Straight doesn't mean fast. It doesn't mean easy. It doesn't mean painless. It means you end up where you were always supposed to be. Maybe you're watching this from a place that looks a lot like where Marcus was. Running towards something that looks like success but feels like a slow drift away from yourself. Maybe you already signed the document. Maybe you already walked through the wrong door. Here is what I want you to know, the path back is shorter than you think. And the one waiting for you at the end of it, he isn't keeping score. He's been watching the road for you the whole time. Come home. If this story spoke to you, don't scroll past it. Share it with one person who needs to hear it today. You might not know who that is, but God does. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Every story, a reminder that God hasn't forgotten about you. Drop a comment below. Tell me, where are you right now on this journey? I read every single one.